Hi, Aiki. Thanks for joining. So this part thinking. Hmm. This is down. Good evening. Welcome, Jeff. How are you doing, bro? Thanks for joining. Yo, I'm trying to push myself with this stuff. Um, somebody suggested last week to do to do masks, so I want to give it a shot, and I'm trying to see if I can mix ideas together to come up with something different rather than just illustrating the mask. So this today's sketchathon is going to be very messy because I don't know what the outcome is going to look like, but if you are patient enough, I believe we'll come up with something. We'll come up with something decent at the end of the day. Well, I think I'm getting the hang of what I want to achieve. It's taking just doing the rough sketches first. Once I get the rough sketched, the next stage should be easier. I'm seeing something. So what if this thing is a cable? Okay. What if this thing is like a cable? 'Cause I'm seeing. Yeah, what if this thing is a cable? Okay. Let's see if we can tie this thing down. This one is going to be rough too, but actually this thing shouldn't be, there shouldn't be a circle. I think this shape should be square. Yeah, I think it should be square. And then I want to put these knobs like this. What do you call these things, like on a radio? Like a dial. No, not a dial. A slide. You know this kind of controls you see on a mixer, those long. So maybe there are different levels. So the trick about this thing is I'm trying to also keep the shape language of the reference, like the radios, the radio references, and the radio references are mostly um they're mostly like rectangular. So it's quite tricky. But I'm seeing a little bit of some tapered shapes, like something like this. So I want to see if I can use some of those shapes here. Then for this part, I had this idea of, let me see, let me think about this. So what if, I just had a crazy idea. What if this meter, like there's a meter I'm seeing here, like an indicator, a radio indicator, like a dial, is it a dial? Like a gauge. So what if this gauge is like the eyebrows? I'm thinking, so what if the gauge is like the eyebrows? So what if, so in that case, if the gauge is the eyebrow, then I want I want the eyebrows to move. I want the eyebrows to move like this, at these angles, right? So if that's the angle, then um, I'm gonna pick one angle. This is quite tricky. Um, so I want it to swing. I want I want it to swing like this. So it's going to swing like this. And then it will be here like this. So that means I have to have two of this. Okay, I get it now. So I'm going to draw two of this for the eyebrows. Oops, I'm not getting it, sorry. This one is also a rough sketch, but how did I do this before? Right. This is the angle. So that's the indicator. So we're going to draw a box here first, and then the second box will be here for the second indicator. Okay, then I want the eyes to be like the cassette player take eyes. So have like two circles there. One circle. So this design is going to be very rough because I can't afford. I don't think I'm going to clean it up a lot. I don't think I'll have time to clean this thing up. So if you guys bear with me, it's going to be very, very rough. I need to move this one up. I want to create like depths here. So I'm going to move it so that to have some more depth. Then for the ears, like I said, it's going to be like wires, so like cables. And then let's say they are plugged to a, yeah, let's say it's plugged to a jack, like a hole. How does jack look? So it's like a cable. And the cable is like wrapped. Um, yeah, the cable is wrapped. How do you wrap cables again? Um, so, so that's one cable on that side. And then there's another jack on this side. Need to make the cables look more organic. Yo, Anu is here. Man, thanks for joining, bro. Thanks for joining. Guys, Anu is a legendary artist. You guys can check him out on Instagram. Okay. So I have to be careful with some of these shapes so that mm, I want this shape to be triangular. Yeah, I know. Thanks for joining. I appreciate it. I'm just trying to do something different. I know I do mostly characters, but today I decided to do something different. Somebody suggested last week that I try something like this, so and I like a challenge, so I just want to try. Let me see. What shape that is for this corner? I think I'll just leave that one for now. I'll come back to that point. And these things that look like pins, they're really cool. Let me see. I also want to give them depth, so give them some depth. This sketch is going to be very rough, so please bear with me. Sometimes when you do character design, you have to be as rough as possible to to just like spit out the idea as quickly as possible. So I don't want to polish. I just want to like drop this thing out as quickly as possible. Also, I don't have so much time for the call, so for the live, so um actually I need I need some more layers here. There's another horn, another set of horns. Um, I'm going to try something different for this one, for the sake of contrasts. Maybe this one will be more rectangular. Yeah, something like that. The shapes are very, very, like I think I probably picked, I didn't pick a very, I picked a very challenging reference. So I probably found some more interesting electronic devices. This device is very, very, it's very rigid. Like there's not much to work with. Okay, so it's time to put some of those buttons here. Yeah, I like this shape because it creates like this eye movement that's like an arrow. Creates like this arrow type of thing that points to the. Let me see. Okay. It makes a lot of sense. Bro, I appreciate the vote of confidence. This is like very, very difficult. Like I hope I'm making sense. If you say it makes sense, that's I appreciate it. But at this point, like a lot of things are very, very a lot of things that's like really, really rough. I don't know if it's making sense yet. Okay, so let's put some buttons here at the corner. Let's say I put two buttons here. Actually, three buttons. Let's make the buttons different in size. So it has like this circular thing. So this one, um, okay. At this point, Okay, let's move this thing forward. Okay, so the edge. I need some more buttons here and there. Mm, okay, I need some depth here. Okay, some red buttons I can put here. So any minute from now, I'm just going to start coloring this thing because there's no time. So I can move on to other things. Um, okay, so this is actually did myself dirty. Like I should have picked a better reference, but okay, I'm gonna put some more buttons here. I need to remember the shape behind this so that mhm. Hmm. And this one makes sense. So just um trying to give this thing more depth. So I'm trying to imagine if this thing was sculpted in 3D, what it would look like. I spent 30 minutes on this thing. I need to keep moving. Okay, so for patterns, the patterns is going to be very tricky because most of the lines are just like parallel lines. Most of the patterns I see on the radio are parallel lines. So I think we'll just have to stick to the parallel line. So what if um let me see. What if I did this? So I have to do a lot of try and error experimentation to see if it's working. If it's not working, then I'll get rid of it. I'm trying to get like a 90-degree angle here so that I can keep the rectangular motif. Mhm. I'm going to move this. Remember what this thing is for. These dials, they're for his eyebrow, like the eyebrow of the like to give that impression that it's like an eyebrow. Okay, so at this point, uh, probably just going to move on to coloring. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask. Mhm. This part is looking very. I have a question, and of course, I mean, bro, shoot, please, shoots. Okay, so I think at this point, yeah, the edges are not like I've not really gotten the edges well, but like the topology. Like, I didn't really define the topology, but so this is like a jack. I want to give like some vents. So maybe like there's vents here. So I put the vents like this. Oh. When you're designing a character concept or any concepts, what's the very first thing you think about before putting pencil on paper? Hmm. Um, yeah, I think the first thing I think about is reference. Like, I think reference is definitely is the first thing I think about because I mean you can draw with, you can design without reference, but man, the funny thing is working on a project, like when you work on an actual project, working on I've worked on two projects. Okay, I worked on more than two projects, but I worked on two projects that required reference. Like they asked me for reference. I worked on the Netflix projects that got cancelled. I was asked for reference on that project. You know, prior to that time, I was thinking, man, as long as I create something cool, you know, you don't need to ask me where I got my inspiration from. But I was wrong. You know, they asked me for reference. I was like, what? I had no idea that uh, I had no idea that references were that important, you know, for actual projects. So yeah, reference is the first thing I think about before anything. I spend like maybe a couple of hours, maybe like 3 to 5 hours just gathering because I already have like a large archive of reference. So sometimes I might have, depending on the needs of the project, I might already have all the reference I need from the my existing archive, but for the most part and then if I already have the existing reference, I just go ahead and use it. But when I don't, I have to actually do the like I have to take some time to search for references on online. I can see this being the body of a sick guitar. Yeah. String instrument, yeah. This is like you're right, like the guitar from I don't know if you remember, I think the guitar actually has a name. The one from Mad Max. I think it has a name. Yeah, that kind of guitar. And then this thing can be like the piano keys on the side. Kind of looks like piano keys. It's looking like I might do only 2 designs today because I've already spent almost an hour on this thing. So let me just move on to coloring so that I can save. Let's see what we can get out of this. I have to think about. I'm thinking about dimensionality of these shapes because this shape is looking. It has to be. If it was a 3D, for a 3D shape, what will it be? Will it have an edge like this or not? I have to think about all of that as well. And maybe it has. Yeah, but if it has this edge, then I need to refine this part. Yeah, something like that. All right, so let's not. Let me see. I'm trying to see if there's any other shape I can add to this to make it more interesting. Um, what if I put like buttons on this? Ah, this is terrible. Yeah, this is a terrible idea. So, one thing that usually helps, and this is where the science comes. One thing that usually helps in design sometimes is um, you have to think about eye movements. So where's the eye? Where do you want the eye to go? If the eye movement is, if the eye movement is like if the area of focus is here, then you don't want to put so much details down there. So I think there should be, if at all there should be any details, it should be in the eye in this area. So in the face. So let's leave it like that. So I'll move on to coloring. Uh, so color. But how do you choose your reference so you don't get overwhelmed by too much material? Do you ever worry about relying too much on reference? So yeah, that's a like loaded question. Um, so I how do I find references? I find references from, like I said, I already have a large archive of references. Most times I already have what I'm looking for. But I get references from everywhere. And when I say everywhere, I mean everywhere. Like I can be watching a show on TV and just pause the frame and take my picture and take a picture, save it to Pinterest. I could be watching a TikTok video, Instagram, anything. I just save. Like Pinterest is like where all my reference is archived. All my references are archived. Um, you can find reference anywhere: Pinterest, Google, like I said, social media, everyday life. You could be taking a walk, and you see something interesting. Even though Nigeria usually frowns at taking pictures, so I've not really gotten to that point where I took a picture, outside. But yeah, those are some ways that you can find pictures. Then the second part of the question is hold on, sorry. Second part of the question you asked is, do you ever worry about relying too much on reference? So I know this. I know why. I know where this question is coming from because I've seen a lot of people talk about how when you when you use a lot of reference, you end up with you end up with your work looking like you end up it becomes a crutch. I understand that question. I understand that question. I understand where it's coming from, but I don't think I've had any issues with. I think every artist is different. Every artist is different. Some people like to exercise their muscles, their intellectual muscles by drawing from their imagination, and they're not wrong. But for me, I spend more time using references, like even study references, because because I study a lot of reference, I've ended up learning more about the human figure and how the body like how the so I learned anatomy from drawing from reference, just to show you why I think reference is important. The more you can use reference to the points where it becomes it helps you to build your visual library. So it has helped me build my visual library. I study the reference every day, every single day. Working on actual projects, I also use reference, you know, because I found that reference saves me time. When most projects that you work on, the the clients doesn't really care much about whether the thing looks perfect or not. They want the work to be turned around as quickly as possible. So I found that references saves me a lot of time. If I'm working on my own personal project, I have all the time in the world, so I can afford to I can afford to take all the time in the world. But when you're working on client projects, especially on TV, animated series, like you're working on a series, there's no time. Like you have to turn this thing around real quick. So yeah, references saves you a lot of time. Last time I took a picture of someone walking. My God. Oh, you took a picture of someone. Yeah, yeah. If you can take a picture of someone walking and get away with it, it's very risky in this part of the world, but it will really help. So this part is looking very plain. I don't like that part, but again, this is a spit. This is like super rough version of my first pass, so it doesn't have to be perfect. Later I can figure all those things out. Um, to help build your visual library, it saves time. Yeah, it saves time. It builds your visual library. It saves you a lot of time if you want to figure everything out by heart. Like you'd burn out real fast. If you're working on a project, you're going to burn out very fast. Uh, and everybody uses references, though. Like don't think that don't think that it's forbidden in the industry or that um it's a bad thing. Actually, everybody uses it. The fact that they request for it itself is enough proof that everybody uses it. So, and I understand why they request for it, because imagine you working on a Eyes of Wakanda, for example, and the people who hired you to work on it don't know anything about African culture. So when you turn in your work, they'll be wondering like, where did this person? How do we know this person is actually appropriating this? So they want to see where you like your references and where you got your inspiration from. Yeah, have to be careful with this part though, because okay. So this is how I usually work. I usually like draw and color at the same time. Sometimes when I'm making correction to something, you see me like go back and color and correct some drawings. Jeff, I have another question. Yeah, yeah, bro. If you have any question, just ask. Jeff is like, na secondary school. Baby." Yeah, yeah. Just ask any question you have. Any question. Um, yes, this is the part I was having issues with. This edge, like, there's no depth there. Have to be careful with that. Yeah, so that part was looking funny. Okay, so the screen is okay. In gathering references, you focus more on realism, mood, or stylization, depending on the project. Realism, mood. No, I won't focus on realism. Like I'm thinking about the like I'm thinking because I'm gathering reference from life, so I'm not thinking about whether it is I'm not thinking about um whether it is real, like realism or anything. I'm just gathering references from life, because life is where you get the best, like the best options. So that's what I'm thinking about. How do I get references from life? So yeah, I just think about, bro, ask your questions. Like just ask any question you want to ask. I don't think about any specific. I just gather the references that I feel are appropriate for the project. At this point, I'm just get using the reference, like using the colors from the reference. Nothing. Then later I can go back and refine. Actually, right. Um, I'm just using the colors as they are in the reference without. Okay. Yo, looks like I'm probably gonna do only one illustration today. It's crazy. Um, so coloring masks can be very tricky. Uh, I need to think. Okay, so I need to color the horn. Let's color the horn. The horns. Okay. Let's color the cable. So these cables. I'm just thinking. So I'm going to adjust all these colors later. I just want to fill them in first. So either I do this or um just those, no. comes to mind when coloring? When coloring your link work. I don't think I understand the question. What comes to mind when coloring your ink work? Is it ink work or link work? I'm not sure I understand the question. Okay, so I need to do something else that will help. Thinking maybe this thing should even be black. I think the whole thing should be black, sorry. Like dark color. And then maybe so I want the focus to be on the face, so the focal points. Line. Oh, line work. What comes to mind when coloring your line work? Let me see. Yeah, I think about color, like the color scheme. Like, is it going to be a combination, analogous, complementary, or a combination of both? Triadic, tetradic, all of that stuff. So I'm thinking about whether it's I'm thinking about all of that stuff and whether it's which color choices I'm going to make. But I think at first, the first thing I think about is to just color everything, just make it like a flat color that and separate all the different shapes. Then I can always go back and refine all of that. So I think that's the first thing. First thing is just to do all separate the separate shapes and then go back and refine it. Okay, so now I have to think about the eye movements. I think that's what I'm thinking about now. The eye movements. can decide if I want to focus, like if I want the eyes to be the focal point, maybe make that part more saturated. Let's say I give it like yellow green eyes. And then maybe if I want, yeah, so I want to add more details to this face so that it's more interesting to look at. Because that's where we want the focal point of. So far, looking like the color scheme is like triadic because I'm seeing yellow, red, and blues. So let's say we'll do more reds, and let's just see if this works. I don't think it's working. So now I'm just experimenting and seeing, trying to see what sticks. But I definitely want this part to be the. So let me just show you what I'm saying. I want this to be the focal points of the work. So what that means is that every other part would be like what's it called? Complementary and analogous. Yeah. So all these other parts would be analogous. So analogous is what I use for less. That's what I use for less focus. And then complementary is for focus. So, and then also I'm thinking about shape language. So I'm thinking about how is this thing pointing, because all these shapes have to point somewhere. Like this one is pointing downwards. This one is pointing downwards. This one is pointing upwards. This one, in a way, is kind of pointing upwards. This one on this side is kind of like a loop, but I also need to make sure that the loop has a sense of direction. Then this one's also are pointing inwards. So I'm thinking about these things like at this point. This part is looking boring, so this part is looking boring, so I need to color that part. Yeah, it's looking like it's going to be one. I'm doing one drawing today, but it's fine, you know. It's not always about just like, I'm trying to be realistic here because it actually takes way longer than this to come up with something interesting. So at least I'm glad I was able to come up with something. Yeah, these eyebrows, yes, this eyebrow is not working, so it's supposed to be white. So let me just do that first. It's actually supposed to be bright, not. So I'm thinking maybe something white like this. And then there's some, I can have some. So when it gets angry, it's heading towards the red zone, right? So this part is the red zone. So when it gets angry, it heads towards the red zone. I don't know if you understand what I mean, but what I'm trying to say is if for example, I want to show him get like really, I want to show the character in like a very angry state, I can, it's, it's going to go like this. This is probably a lame idea, but this was just something that I thought about Like, um, I thought about this thing on the fly, so it's probably not the best idea ever. Yeah, then this thing I'm not liking how it looks plain, so let me see if I can. It looks a bit too plain, so let's give it some texture. I like how the face of the mask looks like a skull. This the shape we settled for kind of looks like a skull. And there can be some things here like writings. I'm trying to remember how cassettes players looked. That's why it's good to find a lot of reference. This one is just for YouTube. Like if I was doing an actual character, I would use way more because for YouTube, I just because I the screen can only show so much. That's why I'm using only one. But maybe for subsequent ones, I'll try to use more reference so that I'm not limited. Because this like designing this character with only one reference was very very limiting. It was not fun at all. Let me see. Okay. Yo, this type of character is only works for like 3D or CG because imagine if you're going to render this thing every time in 2D, like it would be a lot of work. So I want to give him like another jack pot here. Um, this this is not looking practical. Can put some buttons here, just so it doesn't look like empty. This part is not looking so. This is what I like about Clip Studio Paint. I can just select this whole thing and move it. With Photoshop, it would be like a nightmare to separate all these things. You have to separate individual layers before you can correct it. And Clip Studio Paint is just they're very thoughtful of the artists. Maybe about a place you take videos to get just I can even decide to give him another dial here, like, or slide a slide button. Yeah, maybe a slide button is better. Uh-oh. I do this sketchathon every Friday, so please don't forget to join in next week Friday. Since this thing is a slide, I'm thinking maybe we should give it like different, so it doesn't look like symmetrical. So maybe this one, the button is here in the middle, this one is at the edge, this one, it just makes it more interesting. So imagine if the character is like talking, then all these things are moving. The character is talking. Actually, this part is too close. This part's supposed to have an edge. It's supposed to have an edge. There's no time to figure out all these things, but and these are like dials. This is a dial. Okay. All right. So let's see if we can fix some more things. This shape. Okay. Yeah, so this color, let me do that before I forget. Mm, 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 mm. I'm thinking this part should be white or lighter. Should be a lighter color. I've not even flipped the canvas. Let me see. Let's flip it and see what's working or what's not working. Okay. So I think okay, let's make this pass the same color. There. Um, we will be doing props like this for the class. Oh, Brent, thanks for joining. Thanks for joining. So Brent is one of my students for the master class, and is asking, will we be doing props like this? Well, we actually are not doing props like this because the class is more about human characters, not this type of characters. Jeffrey, apparently Photoshop seems to be one of the only tools, if not the only one, that does that nowadays. Oh, really? Photoshop does it? Man, Photoshop, you can't, like, I don't think you can highlight or cut out a whole group. Like, you can't. Okay, let me show you something so you see and tell me Photoshop can do this, because I used to use Photoshop and I couldn't do this. So if I can decide that I want to cut this part out of this image from this whole group and then move it out at once. Please tell me Photoshop can do this. You tell me in the comments, Jeff, if the Photoshop you use can do this. I don't think you can do that, because I used Photoshop for a couple of years too, and I don't think you can do that. Tell somebody. Mm-mm. So the more I work on this, thing, the more I realize that the the tridimensionality of this thing is out of whack. Like it's not really working. So I just have to keep fixing these things. Sorry guys. I know it's boring to watch me fix things over and over again, but you guys are the ones that decided to watch me work, and this is how I work. So that's see, I'm going to do the magic again. The Clip Studio Paint magic. I'm going to move this whole thing. If if Photoshop can do this, well, I'm not going back to Photoshop no matter what, but if they can do this, good luck to them. But I doubt Photoshop can do this. Because unless it's like they've updated the recent update of Photoshop, but the same Photoshop I used to use, you have to separate like all the different layers nested inside the group before you can cut stuff like that. You can't cut the whole group. That's what I meant. They're the only ones that can. Yeah, yeah. Clip Studio Paints. Jeff is agree with me that Clip Studio Paints is the only studio that can do that. Um, J do saying PP on Palestine. I don't know what that means. I'm not for political stuff, man. I don't want to bring political stuff into the chat or into my work. So I would really appreciate if you can like cut that back, please. Jeffrey, I meant to say that they are the only ones that seem to have that problem. Even as Studio and Procreate do group selections and same. Oh, really? I didn't know that. Okay. Photoshop can't. Yeah. CSP is best for drawing. Clip Studio Paint. Yeah. I don't know if it's the best, but I enjoy using it. Like, I've not had any issues. The only issue I have with Clip Studio Paint is that you can't it's not very good for graphic design, but I understand it's not a tool for graphic designers, so that's understandable. But when I used to use Photoshop, I could do like I think there are certain things like when you want to add a shadow to a layer, like adding shadows and stuff. I don't think Clip Studio Paint can do that. Those kind of things are things I miss, in Photoshop. I wish Clip Studio Paint could do that, but those things are for graphic artists. I'm not really a graphic artist, so I'm not really sad about that. Guys, thanks for joining. I really appreciate support. Joining joining the live like this encourages me to want to do more. So thank you so much for joining. Yeah, so just have to join it directly too. for it to feel more, for it to feel more believable. So I'm going to flip it back. Yeah, I think I'm getting to. So yes, let's now look at this thing again and see if there's anything that can be done to improve it. Okay, let me see. Let's say I add some more buttons here. Let me add one more button. Maybe let me see. Let's say if I put the button here, does it really work? Nah, it doesn't work. Well, I need to offset the button. Maybe put it here. Yeah. Then are there other things I can add to this to make it look better? What if I'm thinking about something? What if this part is a different type of button instead of it looking like the others? So yeah, let's try a different type of button here. I remember those old cassette tapes. They had buttons that can you can press. So this part's just not. It's tricky. It's quite tricky. Um, okay, I have a different idea. So what if I'm thinking of those type of buttons that you press and then it goes inside and then it has like you have the play button, the rewind, the pause, the fast forward, rewind, yeah, something like that. That's what I'm thinking about. So let's say, hmm, okay. I'm sorry, guys. This is a creative process. This takes time. Takes a lot of thinking. I have to think about what I'm doing. So let's say it's 4 buttons. No, four is too much. Let's say it's 3 buttons. And then maybe it has, the buttons have something under. Yeah, something like that. Okay. What else? What else can we add to this? A and B buttons. Yeah, A and B buttons. Yeah, something like that. All good. Better for us to see a little struggle than think you get it right immediately. Good design takes time. Yeah, yeah, it takes a lot of thoughts, man. Especially when you're creating something that where you're actually creating something rather than just copy and paste. So okay. I'm thinking of some things to add to this side. To add to the sides. These sides. Or maybe I don't need to add anything. I don't know, it just looks very, I feel like there should be something leading the eyes upwards this way. Something leading the eyes up this way like that. Something like that. Um, yeah, I need something on the sides to lead the eyes to the forehead, to the head. I don't know how to achieve that. Well, I think I just have to leave it like that for now. Or what if I gave the edge more texture, like more, yeah. Yeah. So I'm thinking of breaking this straight line, like to have something maybe like a line. Maybe there's a line here. There's a line. There's a science to this thing. Like it's not just you have to think about how the eye movement is going to work. So this part now becomes like an indent, like that. So just to say, just um, just a thought. I think these are the things that makes us as artists to stand out, in comparison to AI because AI right now, I don't know if AI can do this, but I don't think even if AI could do it, it won't be as functional and intricate and complex as this. So if you want to compete with AI, this is type of art. This is like an idea of the kind of artwork that you want to be creating. If you want to stand out, you know, in the world that we're in today. Um, there's an indentation here. Remember this thing at DAOs. They're actually DAOs or these things. Okay, maybe let me see. Let me use black. So when it's talking, like the thing will be moving like up and down, that type of thing. If this is like a talking mask, when it's talking, the slides will be going up and down. Something like that. Okay. So I have like about 4 minutes to go, and then we end the call. Why do I keep saying call? We'll end the live. So I have about. By the way, I do this every week, every Friday. Please feel free to join, and I really appreciate your presence wondering if I paint this if I paint this a different color, what will happen? So maybe if I use the same red here. No, it's a bad idea. So you see, this is where like you have to use like some sort of logic for your coloring, because if I can decide to paint this part this color, but then the problem is that it looks too busy and we're looking at too many places at the same time because they are equally saturated. But if I leave it like this, it works better because the focal point is the eyes. So but the nose, let me see if I can do something slightly different with the nose. Yeah, this nose is supposed to be it's supposed to be, let me see if I make this a straight line. I actually don't like it like this. Let me see. Um, I don't know if this works, but and if I was working on an actual project, it would be required to do like multiple options. So of course I won't put this much effort if this was going to be one of the options, but you just have to just imagine that you have to do like another like multiple versions of this of multiple options for a character you're working on. If I put this line here, or if I put this in this straight line. Yeah, I think this is what we're gonna leave. This is where we're gonna round call it a day. And this dial is my favorite part of the I think is my favorite part of the design, because I'm using the dial as his eyebrow. Guys, thank you so much for joining. I do this every week, same time, every Friday. This is Sketchathon 7, by the way, so I've done 7. I do this every Fridays, 5 p.m. West African time, 9 a.m. Pacific time, and 12 p.m. Eastern time. So we're gonna call it a day here. Oh, first of all, before I go, let me quickly do this. I left this part. So this my layer. My layer structure is like very. It's not. I didn't structure it very well, but I can figure it out. so I'm going to color these parts. Yeah. The yeah. Thank you so much for joining in, and I'll see you guys next week. Peace. See, total watch time 12 hours.